guys, this is Built by Fear podcast. This is your host, Doug Lagan. On this episode, we get my friend Dan. He is a power lifter, strongman coach. Highly recommended if you guys need training, check him out at Grindhouse Fitness. We get into so much, I don't even know where to start. We get into strongman methodology, training methodology, his experience with coaching himself, and so much more as far as like trials of life, too. It's a really good episode. Hope y'all enjoy it. Have a blessed day. But yeah, we got my boy Daniel Evans. Um, would you call yourself a strongman, power lifter?
Uh,
Definitely a coach.
I think I'm definitely a coach. I think I prefer the term generally strength athlete.
I'd agree.
Just because I think like for me it's I a power lifter. I know a lot of people that hear power lifter they think, oh, big guy is gonna bench a lot, squat a lot, not be able to move. You're a strong man, they may think like, okay, another big guy who can move a little bit.
Mhm.
But I think coming up through sports, like having that like ability to actually to like move and change direction and be explosive, I think is still important. So I like that.
Absolutely. That's what I was about to say because I feel like I met you probably 15, 16, whenever started at Grindhouse.
Yeah, you know,
And
that sounds about right.
since I've met you, you've always been a really technical coach. And
Hmm.
that's one thing I appreciate about you. And that's what I want to kind of dabble into is just like your methodology as far as like training, different things like that.
Hmm.
Because you used to do the strength conditioning at at Grindhouse,
That's correct. Yeah, I
right?
used to do the kids, high schoolers, college,
Hmm.
like athletes. Yeah, like
Right.
football players, baseball players, all that.
And that's like a hobby kind of
Mhm.
side thing that you do while you're coaching. What is your actual 9 to 5 profession?
So my 9 to 5 profession actually has changed. So it actually started out I was Grindhouse athletic training was my full-time job up until 2014.
Hmm.
So I was out of college. I had gotten my personal trainer certificate. I'd been working at the YMCA. And then my high school football coach connected me with David Claiborne, who was the owner of what's now Grindhouse. At the time, it was Genesis Athletic Performance back then. Um, he hooked me up and he was like, "Hey, you want to intern with me?" I'm
So
like,
you
"Okay."
you were Grindhouse before Dusty
I
bought
was
Grindhouse.
Grindhouse before Dusty and Alyssa came in.
I had
Yeah,
no idea.
yeah.
That's
So we're
hilarious.
we're hitting the Wayback Machine. But yeah, so that was kind of my introduction. My first day as an intern, I was just he actually asked me before he asked if I wanted an intern. Do you want to come out and you know check out the gym, see what it's about? Sure. So I show up kind of like I am now in like regular cargo shorts, t-shirt. And he was like, okay, so we've got the 4 o'clock class coming in 15 minutes. Go ahead and get ready to warm up. And
Just
he's
threw
like,
you
I'm gonna
under the
give you a
fire.
quick tour, and then I'd eaten, I don't know why I remember this. I'd eaten Whataburger like an hour beforehand, and he's like, okay, we're gonna go through a quick warm up with the kids. He showed me around. I was ready to puke after the warm up,
Getting those
but
line drills going.
getting the line drills, getting the jumps going, getting the yeah box jumps going, get the goblet squats going. But man, I finished the workout. I loved it, and he was like, "Okay, come back tomorrow. We'll kind of start walking you through how I do things."
Yeah.
And then that turned into yeah.
So
3 months later, I left the YMCA, and Genesis was my full-time thing. Was there for 2.5 years, and then moved into marketing.
mhm.
Just needed a little bit more stability, needed a little bit more, needed health insurance. Really is what it was like.
I get that.
So
100%.
so did marketing, but still was kind of around the gym. I was still this 26, yeah, 2014, 2015. I was still kind of around that gym at the time. And then Dusty and Alyssa bought. He David Claiborne sold off the CrossFit side of the gym to Dusty and Alyssa. So because it had been superhuman CrossFit.
Right. And this was
This
was
was
this was this when there was the cheerleading place? Was that cheerleading place there?
yeah,
And then
that was yeah,
and it was a small
it was
grindhouse.
the small
Grindhouse
grindhouse yeah, it was small
was the
CrossFit.
MMA side now.
Yeah. What's the MMA side now, which was the weightlifting side
Right.
before the MMA side. Yeah. You were there for that.
Mhm.
But yeah, that was all the space grindhouse is in now was the cheerleading space. And then a couple buildings down or a couple spaces down, the building they have when they have the garage doors open, you see the red and the
Yep.
black and the gray
The
on the
old
top.
school
The old school, that
Genesis.
was where Genesis was, yeah.
Yep. The old
So,
school Genesis.
yep.
Wow. Time flies.
Hmm.
Man, you just opened up a time capsule there, bro.
Yeah.
That was what, 2014, 15? And then
Yeah.
now you can say almost 10 years later,
Yeah. Almost
still
10.
got that passion and
Yeah.
grind for coaching. Where does that come from, bro?
So I think for me, like I was thinking about that on the way over here actually was because I grew up like a lot of kids. I played a lot of sports. The first thing I played was, I did soccer, did baseball. The first like real memory of like coaching I have was a bad example of coaching,
Okay.
unfortunately. So I'm first grader, right? So I'm what, 6 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old, something
Hmm.
like that. We're playing. I'm on a softball or a not softball, a t-ball team or a coach pitch. It might have been coach pitch at the time. Baseball team up in Tulsa, Oklahoma. My family had moved from Chicago, and I enjoyed baseball, and they found a league, and we were getting ready for like a tournament in the city or
Hmm.
something. And so my birthday party and practice are scheduled on the same day.
Oh,
Again, so I'm a summer kid, so it's summer baseball.
hot.
Um, yeah, it's hot, but it's like, okay, practice and the baseball party are overlapping, and you know, you want to go to your birthday party, you want to have fun, like,
Absolutely.
so I remember my parents asking permission from this coach to for me to miss practice that day for my birthday party. He's got friends coming, we've got this thing planned, we've whatever, and he's like, okay, I really want him at practice, but I'm not gonna say no, he can't go to his birthday party, but don't expect him to play if he doesn't practice.
Stranger six.
Strange, yeah,
6 years
yeah,
old.
6, 7 years old. So I went to my birthday party. I
Mhm.
apparently didn't. I did not play in the tournament. I was like, man, that's an experience that like you shouldn't have to like
Mhm.
go through. Um, So, and then later on, as I got into high school, I had amazing coaches that pushed me and motivated me and taught me to be better. And I was like, I want to do that. Like,
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
want to be that to someone else. I remember my senior year at Cy Falls High School. We had a really good team. I wasn't a good player, but we had a really good team.
Baseball.
Football, actually.
Football.
Football,
Okay.
actually. So I legitimately stopped playing baseball after in like second grade
Gotcha.
because and switched over to soccer and
Hmm.
football and some golfing in there and
Baseball is a weird sport.
yeah.
And no shade to the baseball players out there,
Hmm.
but it's kind of like how tennis have those like unspoken rules.
Yeah.
You have a lot of those. I
Hmm.
got turned off from baseball when I was about that same age.
Yeah.
It was like 90 degrees,
Hmm.
and they made me wear these ridiculously long socks.
You have to
And
have
I
the
couldn't put them
socks have
back
to
on.
cover up the
I'm
pants and
like, what's up?
yeah.
Yeah, so that's when I stopped.
Yeah. No, I get you. It was a sour experience for me for with baseball. Honestly, I if I hadn't had that experience, I probably would have stuck with it
Hmm.
more. But at this point, I've moved on, done soccer, done football. So we're senior year, and I'm in the weight room in the morning before school starts. I'm going through classes, going through practices, all that. I'm just burning myself out, and I don't even realize it yet.
And this is in high school.
This is in high
Okay.
school, and like, and I'm not a player who's actually like starting or anything.
Hmm.
I'm a backup. I'm okay. He's smart enough to know what to do if we need him in the situation. Um, but I'm still trying to push myself because I still want to play. I want to contribute to the team, and I have a really rough practice. So, like I miss plays I normally would make. My head's just not in it, and my coach pulls me aside at the end of the practice. He's like, "Hey man, what's going on?" He's like, I just explained to him like, I'm getting up at 5 in the morning to get to school at 6 to lift before school, and then you know when I get home, it's 7 o'clock, and then I'm eating dinner. I've got 2 3 hours of homework to do, so I'm in bed at like 10, 11, and up at 5 and out the door trying to get in. He's like, I appreciate the effort, but what you don't see is this is you're hurting yourself right now. You don't realize it. And so he took me, he just comforted me and was like, hey, we appreciate the hard work you're doing. You're getting better. You don't need to be killing yourself
Mm-hmm.
for this. And that kind of just experiences like that with
Mm-hmm.
that was maybe okay. I wanna be able to do that for someone. And then it got to a certain in college, it got to a point where I was like, you know what? I couldn't make it to the level I wanted to. I know there are kids who are like me who
Yep.
want to do that, and that's why I want to coach. I want to help them like learn from my experiences and give them like kind of the tips and tricks that that other people taught that the coaches gave me along the way, and help a kid feel like I may not be the strongest, I may not be the fastest, but I work hard and I know what I'm doing, and I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
like I want to just to have an opportunity.
I feel like the most impactful people
Hmm.
and can be, I think maybe in a positive or negative sense,
Yeah.
are coaches and teachers.
Hmm.
Because we spend so much time with our teachers, and then of course coaches can say something to you that can rock you to your core,
Hmm.
or you can have a coach that actually instills something in you and builds you up in a way that you never thought in 10 years will put you in this position.
Yeah.
So I guess, have you had a coach in the past that, I know you mentioned that coach in high school, any other coaches?
So really, it was coaches in middle school were a real big impact
Okay.
on me. It was funnily enough, my middle school football coach had been my elementary school PE teacher.
Nice.
He took the job at the elementary school or the middle school next door. You get a little extra cash to
Right.
coach football, and teachers are underpaid to begin with. Like
Now,
so,
now is that so we kind of get a track of
yeah.
where you're at? I know you grew up in Chicago?
Yeah, grew up
Okay.
in the Chicagoland area, just a 25-minute ride west of Chicago.
Nice.
So,
Now is that elementary and middle
so
school?
that's all. So all through elementary, I'm in, or all through until like kindergarten, first grade, I'm in Chicago.
Nice.
Then the rest of it, I'm in Oklahoma.
Okay.
Following my dad's career with Amoco.
Okay.
As oil kept moving him further south, and then middle school, high school, college was here in Texas.
Houston specifically?
Houston for middle school and high school, and then off to Belton University of Mary Hardin Baylor for college.
Nice, nice, nice.
That's a
Gotcha. You miss Chicago?
I do miss
You miss the food?
Chicago's. The food is fantastic, man. They got the food scene in Houston is great though too.
It's
Like that, my wife Caitlin's introduced me to so many
I,
new like things I wouldn't have tried otherwise.
I miss Portillo's. That's the main
Portillo's. They're actually
Portillo's.
I actually saw they're building one up in Tomball.
I know there's one in Dallas too.
Yeah, my brother's not too far from it in
Nice.
Arlington right
I know
now.
there's
Hmm.
Detroit or Chicago style pizza. You like Chicago more? Have you had
Okay,
Detroit?
I actually have had Detroit. It's the tin with
Pan
the
style?
real
Oh
cheesy,
yeah.
the burnt cheese on the side. Now, when you say Chicago, which Chicago style are you talking?
Lou Mariani's.
Lou Malnati? Okay, so you're talking the tourist pizza.
Yeah,
You're
not
talking
the
the two.
because yeah, come on, talk about it
Okay,
because it is different.
yeah. So in Chicago, there's two big types of pizza.
Because there's another one that's not deep
There's
dish.
yeah, there's a tavern style. It's
Okay.
essentially like a communion wafer thick crust. So it's
Interesting.
really crispy. You
Yeah.
crack it. It's cut into squares, and it's like served in most family restaurants and like bars and
Is that Italian still?
it's
Or
still Italian. Yeah,
okay.
it's just it's a really really thin crust. And then the other one is what Chicago became famous for was the deep
Deep
dish
dish, yep.
pizza. Pizzeria Uno, Lou Malnati's, Gino's,
Geno's. Oh, I forgot about Uno.
Pequod's. Yeah,
I
there's a
lean towards Lou Mariani's.
yeah. Malnati's is the best one.
But Italian beef from Portillo's,
Mm-hmm.
I went there for a junior nationals a couple years ago. I think it was like 2018,
Mm-hmm.
2019. I ate there every day. I swear.
Chicago proper. What
No, it wasn't Chicago. It was actually Lombard.
Lombard? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right, it's a suburb. Yeah.
Are you familiar with Lombard? Kind of Glen Ellen area.
Yeah.
I used to live out there too.
Okay, yeah. I
Yep.
remember you mentioned that because
Mhm.
you're a Detroit boy originally,
Detroit native.
so it's How do you feel about the Detroit pizza? Like,
Oh, I think Detroit is just
mhm,
it's just a different level. But I
mhm.
have a bias. That little
Yeah.
edge with that
Oh, the
cheese.
cheese edge. Yeah, that's a good one.
Now you don't really find it anywhere else other than Detroit.
Hmm.
But there's a place in Austin. They're building something out here in Houston. It's called Via 313.
Oh yeah, 3-1.
Via
Everyone
313.
from the 313.
Yeah,
Put your
Via.
hands up and follow me.
Exactly. Code name. I like it. I like it. Now I'm hungry. I want some pizza.
Right.
You know, it's funny because this happened last week. I feel it now. I need some food.
Hmm.
Last week I had a podcast
Hmm.
training. I did
Oh,
those squats,
oh yeah. Like,
and I can feel my body. You mentioned pizza now. I think my body thinks it's about to get some carbs.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Okay, so are you training still?
So yeah, I'm still training. I'm coming back from, and we can get into this in a little bit.
Yeah.
But right now I'm kind of I'm in early back. I got back into coaching at Grindhouse probably, and actually came back to Grindhouse it's almost been about a year now, December. Um, After kind of being away with everything happening with COVID and everything kind of shutting down and some other stuff going on. But yeah, so my training right now is I'm doing 3 to 4 days a week. Just really focusing primarily on trying to get my pushing strength, pulling strength, and just those basics back. And you will see me occasionally dying on the assault bikes,
Absolutely.
doing some broad jumps or something, just
So
to try and keep that athlete side.
let me poke your brain a little bit.
Hmm.
So whenever you get, because I experienced this with your dad too,
Hmm.
because I coached your dad for weightlifting for a little bit, and you know your pops had some maybe shoulder
Hmm.
joint stuff. Even dealing with athletes, just their unique ability to move.
Hmm.
How do you go about assessing someone's athletic ability and then programming,
Hmm.
finding ways to progress them over time?
So that you hit it right on the head. It's progression. So the way I'm not going to be a coach who's going to say a lot at first. Like my initial thing is when I am coaching someone, I want to see how they move. I want to see like I'm not going to it'll, and then if I see something that drastically sticks out is, oh, this could lead to issues down the line, or there's a better way to do this, then I'll say something.
Hmm.
But for me, realistically, it's about trying to get the athlete more in tune with what they're feeling,
Yeah.
like, and then being able to over time build them to where they, can notice things on their own.
Hmm.
But and then developing cues around kind of what I'm saying. And with that one, you really have to take the time to to build a relationship with the athlete.
Agreed.
You can't just, yes, there's perfect textbook
Hmm.
examples of what you're supposed to do for it, but the textbook doesn't apply in the real world. Everyone, like you has their own little tweaks and things. Like I've got a bad back
Yep.
from picking up 300-pound Atlas stones and
Hmm.
getting slightly out of position, and it shifts and
It
you're on the
changes.
ground. Yeah.
Yep. I like to say this, like there's general movement principles,
Hmm.
but then all technique is relatively unique.
Right.
And that's why I mentioned your pops because like okay, let's break down the general principles of doing snatch,
Hmm.
right? But then I have to start to change it to the unique technique that this individual may need.
Right.
Same thing with any lifter.
Hmm.
Whether you have maybe a younger lifter, 12 years old,
Yeah.
maybe the leg strength isn't there, maybe
Hmm.
the core strength isn't there. Am I going to have them do the same squats as Greg would?
No.
You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah,
you do it a little bit
exactly.
differently.
Yeah, so the way, and I think really my time working with like the junior high and high school
Hmm.
athletes really helped me kind of develop kind of what cues I can use with that age, and and then I'm still having to find new cues that are working for um, the people I'm working with now in the strongman. There's a Victor actually at,
Hmm. I know. Yep.
Victor.
Yeah.
He's a big wrestling fan,
Hmm.
so using cues that he can like think when we were doing a clean, for example, a continental clean. He
Yep.
was like, okay, so he really needs to get his hips in and get that triple extension. And the cue that works for him was think about like you're trying to take off for a moonsault.
Okay.
Like, so he's trying to get that, you're trying to get that verticality, and you're trying to get your hips going so you can,
So let's dig into that a little bit more
yeah,
because the cue that you're talking about only comes from spending time with an athlete
yeah,
and knowing the individual.
hmm
Excuse me. And I feel like that's the aspect of coaching that a lot of people don't talk about.
hmm
You don't really coach how to articulate cues.
right,
Like good example
hmm
is I coach my wife.
hmm
I have to coach her differently than I coach any other athlete.
oh
It's
yeah.
not the same.
So you
You
guys,
coach Caitlin?
I have tried to coach Caitlin before, and I'm going to tell you, it did not work for us. There was Coach Daniel and boyfriend Daniel. It
Yeah.
was boyfriend at the time. Daniel did not. She would hate Coach Daniel,
Ooh.
and then boyfriend Daniel would try and come out, and it just did not work. We found that I cannot coach her. It's not going to happen. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's really getting to know the athletes. If someone's got a dirtier sense of humor,
Mhm.
I can use some verbiage there that will,
Greg.
yeah,
Exactly.
Greg,
Greg. Vin.
Greg, and some of the people who are no longer at Grindhouse. They it was a little bit more wild wild west
Right, right.
in that transition between when it was Genesis and when it was Grindhouse. So you could get away with a little cheekier reference, like
Right, right.
cheekier cues. Um, but yeah, like you said, it's taken time, and no one teaches you how to like do that. It's on you to kind of
Mhm.
develop those relationships, and
I think there's like a couple different characteristics of a good coach. And, I'm kind of thinking about this off the like in the moment,
hmm
but one of them is constantly pursuing to grow as a coach.
hmm
The moment we as coaches think like, hey, I have it and I've discovered all the cues that I possibly could,
hmm
we limit ourselves.
yeah, someone's going to come along
Mhm.
and they're not going to
And they're
understand
going to
what
challenge you.
yeah,
Yeah.
and you're going to be like, I don't know how else to explain this because I've explained it this way forever and it's
Yep.
always worked, and now you're challenging me and I don't like that.
And then once you realize, like, you only get this from trial and error. You only really get to test this from coaching multiple people. How
hmm
to get good at coaching the squat? How about we teach 100 people how to squat
Yeah.
individually? The hard thing is maybe teaching 30 people how to squat at the same time.
hmm
That's difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. That was that brought me back to we had uh back when it was still Genesis, we had the Cy Falls High School. They were redoing their weight room, and so they were running their strength and conditioning program out of Grindhouse Genesis at the time, and trying to their coach, they had their coaches. It was a different, slightly different coaching staff than when I was there.
Mhm.
They had things that they wanted to accomplish with their kids, obviously. One of them was power cleans,
Yeah.
and we're talking 13 to 17-year-old kids who have never touched a bar like that before. And so we were trying to teach that many kids to power clean. Wasn't going to happen.
No.
It just wasn't. And we had good cues for it, but we are like, okay, and then this is where we go into when you're dealing with maybe people who have injuries is what else
Right.
can I do with these kids that is going to get them, what's the purpose behind this power clean? Okay, they want to be able to teach triple extension, they want to teach explosiveness.
Yep.
So we have overhead med ball throws, we
Mhm.
have vertical jumps, we have box jumps, we have broad jumps, we have plyometrics that we can do to teach that. And
It's like a risk to
yeah,
reward ratio.
yeah,
The other
exactly.
movements that allow for the same purpose, intention of it, with
hmm
less risk.
exactly.
Because the whole thing is, I want to train well. I don't want to
hmm
train practice in a way that may get me injured.
hmm
But that's interesting that you said that because I feel like a lot of those programs you see, no knock at Cy Falls, or generally this is just
hmm
more
yeah,
high school
yeah,
transitioning
it's
off.
every high school that I've seen. Yeah.
Unless you have like some offshoot school like IMG Academy out in
hmm
Florida, which has got a ridiculous
yeah.
well of money to push. But you notice this, you probably seen it before as a coach. You get these athletes, 15, 16, training,
hmm
terrible diet. They're great athletes. They go off to college. They come back 6 months and they are a freak of nature athlete
hmm
because they went off to college. They got the nutrition right,
hmm
dialed in some quality lifting with good
yeah.
coaching, and they come back.
hmm
I've noticed that a lot from like high school kids who may go off
Mhm.
from their normal high school training from whatever school.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I remember I had some teammates. They were a couple years older than me. They were, uh, and again, we're setting the Wayback Machine. We're going back to
Yeah,
2005.
would you graduate high
I
school?
graduated '07.
Oh, seven. Let's
7.
go.
So '05, we had a pretty good team. We had a cornerback and a safety go off to Oklahoma State. They were good athletes, like you said, they were great athletes then in high school. Worked hard, worked as hard as they like knew how to, and
Right.
then they come back to visit high school after a year at Oklahoma State, and they're 30 pounds heavier, abbed up, faster, stronger,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, because they got the nutrition right, because
Yeah.
they got the training. They weren't, and I feel bad for like the high school coaches. Like I know they want the best for the kids, these weight room coaches. And no knock, I loved my weight room coach in high school. Uh, Coach Ab, he was hilarious. But there is, it's one coach per 20, 25
Right.
athletes at a time. And trying to get them all to squat properly and bench properly, they don't have time for that.
It's
Like
hard.
it's hard to.
I'll send it to you. There's some school, some private school out in
Mhm,
some rural area in Texas, and they do a really good job at it.
mhm,
But, and I work at a PT place as a rehab specialist. And one thing we try to do in Sci-Fair ISD is get in with the schools. We've been able
mhm,
to get in with some schools with dance and swim, basketball a little bit, but
mhm.
football is hard to break
Yeah.
through. And it's almost like they're like, "Oh, we're good, we got it." It's
Mhm. It's good.
like,
Yeah.
it's kind of tough.
Mhm.
Um, Forgot what I was about to say.
It's all right. We'll just keep it rolling then. No, but I mean, I think there's a coach that he's actually one of the guys I like when I started getting my personal training certificate in 2012, because I knew I wanted to get involved in strength and conditioning. I wanted to be, or sorry, it was 2011. When I got my personal training, my first like coaching certificate,
Mhm.
personal training certificate. There was a coach out of the Ohio area, Jim Wendler,
Okay.
at the time. He had his 5-3-1 system was
Mhm.
huge, which was based on, and these are principles that like I
Smart.
still, yeah. So you're still 5-3-1 being he had a powerlifting background, but he loved coaching football. Um, and so he like volunteered his time at a local high school in the Columbus, Ohio area to run their strength and conditioning program. And, and his principle was start, and some of them that I still use in my programming is, and the way I like to coach people, start lighter than you have to.
Yep.
Like you're one cool, your rep max, that's awesome. Let's take 85% of that and use that as your one rep max. That way, and then you make progress over time. You add weight, you add reps. His thing was spend 10, 15 minutes doing mobility, prehab, rehab stuff. Spend 10, 15 minutes doing sprints, jumps, throws.
Hmm.
So go spend 20 minutes doing your main lifts, your squats, your benches, your
Hmm.
deadlifts, your power cleans if you're capable of doing it. If not, that's okay. We'll do some weighted jumps or something. And then go do your abs, your back, your triceps, your hamstrings, your accessory work,
Right. Right.
and you're out.
The layers. Yep.
Yeah.
That's how it should be.
Hmm.
Because I like to like try to find what because I mean I used to coach. I don't
Hmm.
coach anymore, and I'm in a happy place not coaching.
Yeah.
That may change in the future. You never know.
Mm,
The Lord
well,
may open.
I dragged you back in on
Bro,
on Wednesday.
I love coaching,
Hmm.
but not even like a. And the problem with me with coaching is that I have to be like I don't have boundaries.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like if I coach, I will go all in and
Hmm.
try to make you literally the best athlete I probably can.
Yeah.
And I have to kind of find that little happy median because this person may just be a hobbyist.
Hmm.
And that's totally fine.
Yeah.
So that's where I kind of struggle with. It's like, how bad do you want
Hmm.
it?
Yeah.
And
I've got to match your energy because
exactly.
It's like, and we go back to like why are teachers and coaches so important? The best ones want more for you than you want for yourself.
Yeah.
So, like you said, you're taking when you're coaching, you're all in on this person. Like
Hmm.
you're making it your job. Your job is to make them.
And I get,
Yeah.
and I'm grateful now because what I do, I work. I guess I can say the name of my company. I work at a Rosti, and
Mhm.
I get to work with.
Rosti sent cut the check,
Let's
sponsor
go.
the
Come
podcast
on,
right
do
now.
it. But it's an awesome place because I get the ability to work with a huge number of like different level athletes
Hmm.
and nine to fivers. And I
Yeah.
almost categorize it like this: like
Hmm.
every person who walks into that door, whatever injury they have,
Hmm.
they are athlete.
Yeah.
And oftentimes people may do a sport. I work with some high schools, I work with some college athletes, and they classify as an athlete. But
Hmm.
then we get these people who are 30, 40, 50,
Hmm.
and they don't see themselves as athletes.
Right.
They run marathons on the
Hmm.
weekend.
Yeah.
You are an athlete, and I
Yeah.
have to kind of convince that, and okay, let's break it down. How can we apply some sort of warm up, some sort of training methodology around it?
Hmm.
And I think that's really where it goes a long way. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. So I 100% agree. And my thing is like I've picked a sport, strongman.
Hmm.
And for anyone who's listening who doesn't hasn't seen World's Strongest Man, the TV show. You can catch it on, I guess it's CBS Sports now,
Okay.
actually, and CBS cut the check too. You need to. I'm gonna stop mentioning these companies
No,
if
no,
they don't cut the
have
check
to,
for you,
have
Doug.
to. We'll
Uh,
tag 'em.
so they're so World's Strongest Man, the sport of strongman in general, is the sport of picking up and moving heavy things as fast as you can or as many times as you can.
Hmm.
So it's picking up big concrete balls. It's and lifting them over, putting them over onto like boxes or over bars that are set a certain height. It's picking up a sandbag or a keg, and how far can you carry it in 60 seconds? And I feel like it's a sport that applies so much to life,
Right.
but it's at the same time when people picture strongman, they've got big,
Huge arms,
they've got huge arms,
forearms.
but they're dirty, they're covered
Yeah.
in pine tar that they use
It's
to keep the
crazy.
stone attached to them while they try and
I
lift
thought it
it.
was to not like
Yeah,
have your arms completely
yeah.
destroyed from.
So they make special like leather covers that you can buy for it. You look like you're literally the mountain out of Game of Thrones when
Right.
he's got his sleeves on. Um, but my thing with that is I want to make strongman like accessible to the people where it doesn't get in the way of your life.
Right.
Like I
Gotcha.
want it to enhance your life. So the athletes, they always tease me when I say we're doing stones. Oh, do we get to use tacky today? Do we get to use tacky today? Because
Mhm.
they want the ego boost of being able to, or they want to be able to lift the most
Right.
weight they can
Right.
and the tacky helps them lift the most weight they can, which I love. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll still do that, but I want you to be able to. I don't want it to be. It could be a barrier to someone,
Right.
like someone comes in and is trying it for the first time. They don't know what this
Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
is.
It's wild.
They don't want to get it on their clothes and ruin their clothes and like they've got a haircut appointment afterwards. They
If
don't want to like
anybody's ever seen tacky,
yeah.
it is kind of wild.
So it is to try to explain it the best I can. It's a pine tar
Like sappy.
yeah, sap essentially that comes in these jars that you pull it out of and it like stretches like cheese on a pizza. Sorry, Doug. I know you're hungry
Let's
already,
go.
but
I'm going to Whataburger after this.
it stretches like man. It stretches like like mozzarella when you're pulling, and then you literally take it and you slap it on. You put it onto your arms. You put it onto your hands. It's gonna get. You're gonna hug the
It's
stone.
everywhere.
It gets everywhere.
Everywhere.
Like you pull it and you see people like trying to put it on, and there's little strands just
Yeah. Yeah.
floating through the air. It's an inconvenience.
Yeah.
It is. It's awesome to use, but it's an inconvenience. And like I there was a saying that went around for on a website called Starting Strongman. Kel Becky was one of my first coaches in Strongman. Uh, he started this website just as a, 'cause there wasn't sources for information for strongman at the time. Um, so and he'd put up articles, he'd interview athletes about like their training and just general like how to be good at strongman, how to get started in strongman. And he had this his tagline for it is strongman is for everyone.
Yeah.
Like, and that's kind of what I want to.
So would you say, and then this so that you can see, because I guess we may share very similar perspectives as
Mhm,
far as like just different as far as the sport.
mhm,
Because weightlifting, I think of it, I love my sport, I compete in it, but I
mhm,
want to move.
yeah,
My whole goal is to move. Weightlifting is the way I choose to move.
mhm,
Maybe you're saying the same thing. You want to move and hopefully teach people to move.
yeah, exactly.
Strongman is the way you want.
Yeah,
You're trying to compete.
strongman is my chosen. And they again it goes my introduction into strongman goes back again to my when I was at Genesis. Um, David Claiborne, again, the owner at the time, he had a philosophy that I thought was very interesting, and it made sense in my head. And you might also appreciate this. He said every kid who comes to this gym is trying to compete at something. They're competing for a position. They're competing to be a starter. They're competing to make a team. They're competing to, you know, win a championship.
Hmm.
They're coming in here because they want to be the best because they're competitive. You can't coach someone, you can't tell someone to be competitive or help them be competitive if you're not competing, if you're not competitive yourself.
Right.
So his thing was all his coaches had to compete in something, had to be
Yep.
training for something.
Yes.
And so for me, it was, I chose strongman because it looked the most interesting and like weightlifting. I appreciate the beauty of it. I appreciate the technical aspect of it. I just don't have the attention
You're
to
gonna
focus on two lifts plus a squat my entire
oh,
life.
good. It
Uh,
is. It is a special little cave you get
mhm.
into.
Oh yeah, no, you guys, what you guys do
Oh
is
my
impressive,
goodness.
man. Lasha, 500,
Same.
yeah.
I mean,
We
all these guys.
Yeah, we were
Tony
talking
Love.
about. Oh, we were teasing. I was teasing Greg at the gym the other day about strongman does what we can to push the most weight over our head. Then why is our record 100 pounds less than what the weightlifter's record is?
Send this to you, and it's deliberate practice.
Hmm.
I think it's All Things Gym did a really good YouTube little mini documentary
Hmm.
featuring Quo, which is a Chinese Taipei, phenomenal weightlifter.
Hmm.
Um, I want to say she came in, she medaled in the Olympics, I'm sure. I don't think she got gold. She may have got gold, whatever.
Hmm. Yeah.
But intentional, deliberate movement, and it not being about, okay, how much weight am I putting up,
Hmm.
but the quality of the weight that I do
Yeah.
lift.
Hmm.
Her coach says the goal is to lift more weight with less power,
Mm.
all technique. So if I can
Hmm.
be more technical, I then should be more efficient in my movement.
Right. Hmm.
And I'm gonna ask you this because you can give me like an outside perspective. Because when I train, especially if it's a heavy day,
Hmm.
I intentionally go into a little cave and
Hmm.
I get real quiet and I
Hmm.
really don't see anybody. How does
Yeah.
it look on the outside?
You
I'm
are
super curious.
you are zoned in. You are when I can tell when you're in a heavy day because you're in your you like you said you're in your you look like you're in your own little cave. You're in your own little world. It's you're almost like you're staring down the weights like
Yes,
ahead of
exactly.
time. Like you are going to be made. I will make it easy. I am going to do this.
Have you heard of a flow state?
Yes.
And that's what I'm trying to chase.
Hmm.
And that's the hardest thing because I'll say the stars aligned. It's like a drug, bro. It
Hmm.
really is. The stars
Yeah.
aligned in one competition,
Hmm.
and the snatches
Hmm.
were like, but
Yeah.
I dived deep into that flow state for the clean and jerk,
Hmm.
and I really don't remember it. It was just
Yeah.
like third person almost,
Hmm.
and it was just like you're just doing the motion, and it was the best feeling ever. And I try to find that in training, and I try to
Hmm.
hopefully coach and get people to do that.
Yeah.
That's a hard thing to coach athletes in,
Hmm.
is the intentional practice of something.
Hmm.
So yeah, can you speak to that? I mean, you can have the hobbyists, but then you
Yeah.
also have the competitive elite
Right.
trying to pursue like a Good examples like a Dusty. Dusty does it all the time.
Dusty,
Except he looks like he's about to stab
yeah,
somebody.
Dusty is, and that's so my philosophy in that is, and it may sound counterintuitive to what you're saying actually is everything I'm doing in training is practice.
Mm,
Everything I'm doing in training is practice for my competition day. So yes, like getting psyched up in the gym. Yeah, that's getting psyched up, hitting. You used to see power lifters, you'll see strongman do it,
ammonia salts, yeah.
hitting their ammonia salts. I know Nick at the gym very much like Dusty. He's and I love Nick. I coached Nick through his last competition,
Nice.
and he
Third, right?
yeah, he got third in his last
Nice.
competition. But he like for me, it's how can I take that aggression and harness
Yep.
it? And it's tricky. It's different for every single person. But again, like I said, my thing is I'm going into the gym to practice, so I'm going
Right.
to be deliberate. I am going to do things the way I'm going to do them in competition. I'm going to try and hit that same standard every day.
Hmm.
So if I'm doing an overhead press, we have to you have to do you have to do this in weightlifting too? You get it over your head and you have to wait for a down command.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. And in a rep event for an overhead press for reps in strongman, I've I've seen so many people they get used to, oh, I'm pumping it out in the
Yep.
gym. I'm in my zone. I'm energized and I'm just moving the weight up and
Losing all
down.
the reps. Yep.
And then when I get to competition, I try to do that. I'm like, you get no repped.
Yep.
You get told no. So so for me it's really how can I again harness your aggression, how can I harness your whatever it is that gets you excited
Hmm.
into this state where you're practicing, where you're setting yourself up for your competition.
You know what's helped with that? At least for my training, and I guess any can attest to this too.
Hmm.
You do it a lot actually with the strongman stuff because you guys have the little time.
Hmm.
Everything's tempo.
Yeah.
Everything's a rhythm. I steal this from CrossFit,
Hmm.
but you think about like barbell cycling. If you see like elite CrossFitters
Hmm.
cycle a power clean and jerk or some
Yeah.
shoulder and overhead movement, there is a tempo to it
Hmm.
all, right? The way they receive the bar, the way they dip, drive, and back overhead. They get that breath at the top. Or even
Hmm.
rowing is like that
Yeah.
too. There's a tempo in the pattern in which you breathe. I
Yeah.
guess you could say the most
Running, which I hate, it's the same tempo.
tempo,
It's
exactly.
I was watching um a video of Mitchell Hooper, who is the reigning world's strongest man.
Hmm.
He's big into I want training to enhance my life, and so he went on a tour of met with different like CrossFit champions
Hmm.
actually, and he did an endurance workout with someone, and they were the coach that they were working with at the time. They were talking about the tempo of running.
Yep.
When do you breath? When do you breathe when you're running? When do
Yeah.
you
What
do
step
what
is your
step?
breath?
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
And then learning how to pace yourself, like, okay, if I'm pushing harder, I need to breathe every fourth step. If I'm a little bit back, I need to breathe every fifth or sixth step. And
In the most elite
hmm
type of situation, tempo is I feel like tempo is so associated with your breath that
hmm
if you lose that tempo, you typically lose your breath.
yeah,
And that's when all heck breaks loose. And
hmm
you know, in CrossFit, you may lose your I used to lose my rep count. Like I don't know what number I'm on.
yeah,
You know, stuff like that. In the most extreme sense, I think the military uses that type of methodology a lot
hmm
with their special forces guys, right?
yeah,
Everything's rhythm, everything's tempo.
hmm
So that way you can hopefully keep your composure and process what you need to do,
right,
right?
exactly, yeah.
Man, we've been talking for a while. Where we at on time? Okay,
Eh,
yeah,
all
that's
right, yeah.
excellent. Yeah, we doing
I don't
good.
know how long you normally go, but
About that,
about that.
30 an hour or something like that, but we're good.
Yeah.
Man, you know, it's been good talking to you. And
Hmm.
like I said, I legitimately appreciate how you coach. And
Yeah.
while I'm in that little cave of training and I'm off thinking only about my weightlifting, I see everything
Hmm.
and I see how people do some things. And I think that's awesome. You have a legitimate passion. Now, I know you just when you and your wife went through some things during, was that in the middle of COVID?
All right, so it was yeah. So I what you're talking about. So we actually, so our relationship is has been a blessing to me.
Mhm.
We legitimately moved in together, like, and then COVID lockdown happened like a
Wow,
month in to
that's
us living
wild.
together. So we had yeah, so we got to really figure out how well we meshed and how to like actually like be good partners to each
Right.
other in that. But no, what you're referring to is I was diagnosed with testicular cancer in April of 2022.
Hmm.
So I'm in remission now, but yeah, that was a rough time, and it kind of when you have, but it was also a time when we were talking about this kind of
Right.
off camera
Yep.
where it's almost you don't have time to process things. You just have to you get set a plan and you just execute the plan, which again is a big carryover to anything in life is that ability to see, okay, this is not ideal, this is not what I wanted to be doing. Obviously I did not want to be going through
Right.
chemo, I did not want to have to go into surgery. But having a being able to, okay, the people around me, my wife, her family, my family, the team of doctors, um, they've come up, trust the experts, and to be able to trust the experts to know that, okay, well, they've done this before, this is what they need to do. I follow their plan, and execute it the best of my ability, and I have the support and the support system around me that really helped me get through it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And let me know if I ever like embark in a question that sensitive, because
No.
I know for me, like in my past and things that wake me up,
Mm-hmm.
and life is so fragile, and I
Mm-hmm.
feel like Lord has made definite situations to where it's like, yeah, life is fragile.
Mm-hmm.
How has that like changed how you handle your day to day now?
I think well, it's been a kind of it's been a blessing, but you could also say it's a there's a as a survivor like of cancer, you understand like how, like you said, how fragile life is and how valuable life is. At the same time, I for me personally, like I know there are times I'm like, well, I got through that. I can
Yeah.
do anything. It becomes almost a point of ego of I'm invincible
Hmm.
now because I got through that,
Hmm.
which is really not the case, and can lead has led to some struggles
Hmm.
otherwise that I'm not proud of,
Yeah.
but working through those again with support from wife and family. And uh, but no, it's having gone through that experience of cancer, it made me really appreciate the life I have, appreciate the people I have, and it made when I was able to come back and do the things that I enjoyed doing again, working out, coaching,
Hmm.
it it reignited that passion in me that I had honestly kind of lost.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
So it was kind of a okay, it was an awakening almost like
Okay.
okay,
So you said you kind of working through it, but at the beginning, kind of had a different effect of it being more like,
yeah.
yeah, I
So
see.
it's starting out, it was very much a okay, I don't have time to think about this, and I just have to do it. I just have to execute. I just have to work the plan, and at the end of the day, what's the plan is going to get me healthy. It's going to get me into remission. And then like you really don't have time to process it.
Hmm.
I have to act and go and trust the people around me. Um, and I'm sure I'm rambling now. I don't
Oh,
you
not
know.
good. You're good.
But it just after when you get that. remission announcement. Like the
Oh,
doctor
yeah.
says, yeah, you're in remission. Now, remission still means I have to go in and get tests, and I still have to make sure everything's
Okay.
okay. You're not cured until 5 years after
Okay.
the last treatment. Um, but I really appreciate like the life I have now. Like it
Man.
brought me back to passions, like I said, again, coaching and lifting, and I want to get back and compete in strongman
Yeah.
again.
Go for it, man.
But it's been kind of a life-changing experience.
Yeah. I'll say this. I mean, just hearing your story, I can tell you're definitely blessed.
Hmm.
Lord, has his ways of working on anybody, regardless to where we may be at.
Hmm.
Um, I'll say this, my one thing that kind of humbled me when we experience different things in life, but I feel this in the core of my heart. We all have our day.
Hmm.
It could be tomorrow, it could be 30 years from now, it could be 40 years from now. But while we have this moment, we got to live for the glory of God or to pour some sort of
Hmm.
positive, just joy into the people around us. Give
Hmm.
something.
Yeah.
Or it's not gonna last. I'm
Hmm.
not sold on this world's idea of, man, let me just make a whole bunch of money,
Hmm.
sit back in my quarter sack and just have a whole bunch of chains or cars.
Hmm.
Bro, life's so short. Let's hand something good to somebody else.
Hmm.
You
Be
know what
a
I mean?
yeah, be a positive force in the
Yeah,
world. Yeah, like
absolutely.
that. And I've seen you do. I know you've been a positive force in my wife's life. Like when you're the reason she got into the gym, she got into weightlifting
Mhm.
was because she
I forgot I did. I
met
did
you.
coach.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
like, hey, you need to come check out this
Look at
weightlifting thing I do
and now I'm
when
married.
you're working at a coffee. Yeah, if she hadn't met you, we wouldn't. Who knows?
Look at that, bro.
Yeah,
Hey, see, you're
exactly.
welcome, bro.
Thank you. Yeah, you putting everything out into the putting all your good stuff out in the world, man. That.
You got all for the glory of God, bro.
Hmm.
I tell you this, Built by Fear is a show about passion.
Hmm.
For me, that passion comes from what God has done in my life, and it
Hmm.
pushes me forward to hopefully, show grace and mercy to those around me. I guess how has your what drives your life now? Where does your passion come from now?
My passion, I would say, for me right now comes from it's a new passion for life. A lot of it really did come from going through the health scare that I going through the cancer, and then being able to come out on the other side healthy, and then be able to celebrate that and celebrate getting married with like friends and family.
Yeah.
And because we got married, Caitlin and I did just my last cancer treatment was in July, and then we got married in September.
Wow. So
So
did y'all just have y'all 1 year? Wait,
yeah, we just had our 1 year
September what?
September 15th. Yeah.
Nice, bro.
So we told the
Yeah,
story
yeah,
earlier,
you
but
did.
we've actually been married since September 15th, 2019,
Okay.
according to the state of Daniel Evans and Caitlin Francis on a piece of paper after a date. Uh,
Tell them that story real quick.
yeah, so Caitlin and I had been dating for a few months, and we went to a brewery. I'm a bad influence. She
Mm.
had just turned. She didn't start drinking until she met me because
You like beer?
I like beer,
Nice.
and
I do
now
too.
she likes whiskey because of me, and it's a terrible sort.
Both are good. What are you
Yeah,
talking about?
I'm a bad influence.
You're good.
But so we had gone to a brewery that we love in the Conroe area called B52, and we had a great time. Um, ended up sitting in the car for a while after that date, and we were just talking about kind of where we saw our lives going, and we both kind of knew that the other person was who we wanted to be with. Um, and so there was a notebook in the back of the car, and Caitlin opened it, and she's like, "I'm gonna write something. You have to tell me if you agree or not." We are married, is what it said. We are married as on this September 15th, 2019. if you, I signed it. I signed that piece. We both signed that piece of
Mhm.
paper saying we were married. And then so we officially got engaged around Christmas of 2021 and planned our wedding for September 15th, 2022. So
Wow.
3 years after we married ourselves, my
To the day though, but y'all
to the
did it. That's
day,
that's so good
to
y'all
the
remember
day,
it too.
yeah, I need to find that piece of paper,
Yeah.
man. That
Oh,
piece of paper
find that.
changed my life. I'm sure we have it somewhere, but
For
that's got to
sure.
be framed up in in our house now. Like,
That's awesome, bro.
hmm
Man, Dan, I gotta say, this has been a honor and and a privilege to be able to talk to you, man. It's been awesome. I've been wanting to poke your brain as
yeah.
far as like your strongman stuff and just the way you think about training for a long time. So I'm glad we were able to actually do it.
Yeah, I
For sure.
appreciate the opportunity, Doug,
Absolutely,
man. It's
absolutely.
been great just chopping out. I think this is like we've known each other for years
Yeah,
now, and I think this is legitimately like one of the first times we've ever had
like a sit
more a
down
sit down like real
other than
conversation.
like little bro
Yeah,
conversation at the gym. Yes, absolutely.
but no, it's been a pleasure, man. I think what you guys are doing here is a great thing,
Thank you.
and like the message that you're trying to get out and through this podcast is, I think something people need more of, man.
Thank you, bro.
So
Appreciate
keep
that.
it going.
Thank you,
Keep it
bro.
going.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been Built by Fear podcast. Y'all have a blessed day.